All right, good morning to you. Welcome to VOP TV this morning. My name is Moses Humphrey. And of course, working with me is Esther Wachuku. Now, there are two key stories that we are tracking this morning. First one, Lagos is Yoruba land, not no man's land. And laws will be made to protect its ethnic ownership. Now, those were the thoughts of Mudashiru Obasa, Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly. Does anyone have anything to be afraid of? Plus, the second one, more voices are joining the call for the release of IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu, latest being that of Governor Peter Mba of Enugu State. Now, do well to click on the like button and subscribe to our page on YouTube. It is Voice of the People TV, and on other social media platforms, VOP TV Live. But first off, we'll get into what the front pages are saying, and as usual, with me in the studio is Cyril Abaku, VOP analyst. Good morning to you, Cyril.
Good morning, Moses.
All right, and so let's get into it. An interesting day it is, the very last day in the week. We do have headlines that we'll be touching on this morning. All right, so without wasting time, let's see the headlines that we have right here. Starting off with the Sun newspaper. INEC explains non-transmission of election results with beavers. OBLP seek court order to question commission on credibility of ICT devices. All right. Now, on top of that one, FG declares June 12 public holiday to mark Democracy Day. Mba in Asu Rock asked Tinubu to release Kanu, says such gesture will begin healing process. Outlined security economic plans for Enugu. All right. And when you go further down, you have this headline. Makinde, Wike, Otom, Ikpeazu, Ogwai meet Tinubu, seek equity, fairness, justice. Panic in Anambra Assembly as armed men try to abduct member-elect. 10th NAS leadership. Nobody should take Izona so seriously. Ahize. El Rufai under fire over viral video. Catholic priests ask Tinubu, Uba, Sani to call ex-Kaduna governor to order over comments on same-faith ticket. Tears as ex-senator Annie Okonkwo dies at 63. Soludo Indige, others mourn. And also we have Kosel backs Ohaneze for rejecting deputy speaker position, declares Benjamin Kalu persona non grata. All right, and then we have leadership of the 10th Assembly. The names there we have interesting. Well, leadership of the 10th Assembly. It's interesting how the paper puts it. They have the picture of the presidents there, President Bola Tinubu, and then they have Senator Abdulaziz Yari and Senator Ojus or Kalu. All right, so okay. Oh, that's a sponsored article. Yeah. Oh well, these are the headlines from the Daily Sun. Cyril.
Well, I think the story involving former Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna, in which he was touting his political sagacity in using religion as a tool for political control and to determine who got what and who didn't get what. Sometimes these people who come out publicly to be the advocates and front runners or harbingers of good governance, democracies, public sector reforms, and so on, are also sometimes your worst political chauvinists. They are also the people who hold the most rustic pre-civilization, rudimentary, very, very primitive views about social cohesion and habitation. It is clear now that Nigeria knows the people who are enemies of our social progress. This same governor said in 2019 that people who came to monitor the elections, he was speaking to foreign observers, EU. He said, monitor these elections, write whatever you report, and walk away. Don't do more than you should be doing. I wonder what that meant. Then he said, if you don't if you go beyond whatever thing the TC was saying, that they'll go back in body bags, a sitting governor of a state, former minister of the FCT, who at the time was seen as perhaps the future of Nigeria, you know, I mean, in the manner of speaking, the future of our public service and so on, is a technocrat. He was among the technocrats that Obasanjo brought back then. Rufai, Obasa, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Charles Soludo. That was like the crack team of the government. And yet, this is what he thinks in the inner part of his mind. It is shameful, to say the least. But I think we shouldn't just end there. Now, this APC government in the past 8 years spoke so loftily about hate speech. I think the police and other relevant agencies should effectively gauge what the content of his speech and tell us whether he is liable for prosecution or not. It's not enough to say, call him to order. Call him to order. But he's about to become maybe a minister or an ambassador or something in this government. This was a man who publicly dared a sitting president of his own party. He gave a nationwide speech confronting the president and the presidency, confronting the entire nation.
That's audacity in itself is something that should be troubling.
I personally think that Mr. El-Rufai has got away with so much. Just before he left office, I think the weekend before the handover, there's a community where a court ruled and said the governor shouldn't demolish their buildings. So he left it. When it was 2 days for him to leave office, he sent bulldozers there. Not only did they bulldoze and scatter houses, one young man who came out and said, but he was shot dead. Nigerians, this is no matter to us anymore. It's as if in the public mind, it happened. No. Me set our own of our state, our governor, our president. It doesn't matter to anybody anymore. So if the president will reward this kind of behavior with a ministerial appointment, or even to first of all rewarding with he can still walk free, I think that by now there should have been formal condemnation of that act by somebody from government to reassure, because a government that has a Muslim president, a Muslim vice president, okay, I think a Muslim chief justice of the federation, we're about to have the North Central cut out of government. You're going to have Jibrin is not a Christian, he's a Muslim. The incoming Speaker of House of Reps, Tajuddin Abbas, is also Muslim from Kaduna State. A government that's about to be populated with this sort of same-faith persons, I think owes the nation a moral burden to continually and with required urgency to continually assure Nigerians that look, it's not for the optics, that we are here to serve everybody.
Not for the optics, indeed. What
Governor El-Rufai has done in Kaduna appears to be the same thing that is about to play out in Abuja. And this man is known to be a very close ally of the incoming president. We all know the role that speech he played in clearing the way for the cash crunch policy to fail, for the lack of fuel supply, whatever, to also, So we need to understand that, we need to be told and to be reassured. I also think that the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs in Nigeria should condemn El-Rufai and caution him and call him to order and tell him that, no matter what it was he did in his state, it does not reflect the views and official position of Islam in Nigeria. That we can live together as brothers and sisters in nationhood. Until that is done, it will all come to a joke when we say that we can live together despite your tribe or tongue.
People are saying things and nobody's calling them to order, cautioning them indeed.
So I think that the National Council for Islamic Affairs, the National Supreme Council, should call him to order. The president should denounce what he said. He should denounce him. It's not right. And what was he gloating about? A Muslim governor, a Muslim deputy. The election that brought El-Rufai to power in second, was it free and fair? We also was it free and fair? Was it free and fair? Can he beat it? Can he come and say it was free and fair? So these are the issues. A new nation can be born, but not with men like this being our midwives. There will be no future whatsoever.
All right, and let's move away from the Daily Sun. Let's go to the Punch newspaper now. The Punch has these headlines: Tinubu's meeting with lawmakers fails to resolve zoning crisis. President called for zoning, failed to name anointed aspirants, sources. Opposition parties claim majority, plot to use number against APC candidates. And then on top of that one, we have reps step down 543 billion naira judgment debt payment. President signs bill on judges' retirement age. Subsidy NNPCL failed to remit over 8 trillion naira, says RMFAC. And then when you go further down, you see Nigeria Air, Arewa Group demands Sirika's arrest. INEC, APC oppose LP's request to quiz IT experts. Return home for vote buying trial, APC tells Adibutu. Ogun community residents stranded as flood overruns Link Road. And then we have 5G raised telecoms GDP contribution to 2.51 trillion naira. That's according to NTC. All right, Cyril, which headlines are you most interested in?
There are a number of them. Let me even begin with the Sirika.
The Arewa calling for his arrest.
Because I know that about 2 weeks ago was when the sham air, you know, when the minister kept on shouting and saying, Nigeria Air will take off before, we were on this, and I said, what is the confidence this man has? How is he so sure that this was going to happen? Because normally if you say Albarca Air, Nigeria Airways, Lufthansa and so on, I know that you are at least talking about, let's say, a fleet of airlines, of aircraft, okay, to ply the routes and maybe local or international and so on. But it was, he said, so I was wondering, were they only going to bring 25 jets into Lagos and into Nigeria and so then it was only one aeroplane that came.
And the minimum to even float is 3.
So I was wondering, when they kept on saying it will take off. Now, the thing came to Nigeria that Friday. The following day, it was flown back out. To tell you how criminal that whole venture was, even the very aeroplane that came to Nigeria was rented. So what did he mean? And now the fact
Not
that...
just rented and painted colors.
And painted colors.
That's criminal.
That's fraud.
Exactly. That's fraud.
Now
that's a fraudulent act.
Exactly. Now the thing came to Nigeria, it has gone back. Ever since the House of Reps came out to boldly declare that this whole work was a fraud, we have not had any official response. The Ministry of Aviation, Ministry of Justice, you may be aware that federal government has declared June 12th public holiday. The president didn't say that. You know who wrote who issued the statement? The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Interior. Because the ministers are mere political appointees. The people who are the administrative heads of the ministries are the PAMSECs. If the permanent secretary can issue a memo on behalf of federal government, it means that the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Justice can also act. Permanent secretary in the Ministry of Police Affairs can also act. I'm just wondering why they've not arrested Sirika till now. Because they have, and have you noticed something, sir? Maybe we need to observe that if Buhari was a president, believe me, this House of Reps may not have summoned the boldness to declare this Nigeria Air whatever a fraud.
Yeah, probably.
Did you notice that as Buhari left office now, what's it called? The waterways bill, they've thrown it in the bucket. Because these are anti-Nigerian. These are bills that have the capacity to break this country on a platter. When a law is a recipe for war, that's what the waterways bill was. Many people didn't know. But as far as I knew, that was either the first or only bill that the president took by hand and said, this is an executive bill to the National Assembly. A bill that was to possess all the waters, in territorial waters of Nigeria, to the government. So if I wake up in my backyard tomorrow and I want to go and fish, I have to first obtain a permission from the Ministry of... meanwhile, cattle herders may come and graze and drink there. And I will now have the power to tell them to walk away. So much for a president who loves this country. And now he told us that if Nigeria does not defend him, Niger will come to his defense. I think he's a Nigerian. He should go there. He should go to Niger. Since he has vowed to hate our country and vowed to destabilize our land, he should go to Niger because that's where he claims that he'll be loved. A president who took evidential steps to destroy his own country. Who are the minister? How come? This is the point. How is it that Nigerian NIA didn't pick it? The DSS didn't know. Nobody knew. Until the president left, nobody would have known that this whole thing Sirika was doing was a sham. Nobody knew. The presidency didn't know, or they knew and they were claiming that they didn't know.
I think I would not want to believe that nobody knew. I think more or less it was people knew, but were too afraid to speak up.
Because we had a president who either was not aware or was aware but chose to bless the mess. I don't know what President Buhari wants to do, but believe me, the time will come when Nigerians will tell him to even to arrest President Buhari, former President Buhari, and put him on trial. Because in the coming days, I believe you hear more things.
Well, I don't know if that will happen.
No, but Nigerians will make. I believe me that Nigerians are going to call on Bola Tinubu president to say, you will need to arrest this man and put him on trial. You will have to do it. That is whether you want to do it or not is the second. But Nigerians will call, tell him and say the evidence is out there. It's too clear for everybody to see.
All right, let's move away from the Punch now. Let's go to the Nigerian Tribune as we... yes. So from Nigerian Tribune, bold headline here. 10th NAS, Tinubu pushes on. Meets lawmakers elect. Canvasses unity. National interest. Wants them to downplay politics. Meets G5, all governors in support of APC zoning template. Ogun, governor. PDP will work with other political parties. Ologun Agba. All right, and Tinubu signs first bill. New act harmonizes judicial officers' retirement age, pension. All right. DSS storms Anambra Assembly, attempts to whisk away Newi lawmaker-elect. All right, so, and then, you want to respond before we go on, or should I just go on?
Well, maybe you go on.
All right, then. So,
when you're going on.
NNPCL yet to reconcile 8.5 trillion naira fuel subsidy claims. RMAFC. All right. Enugu governor Inasu Rock presses for Nnamdi Kanu's release. And then we also have on top of the nameplate here, NAS election results transmitted, but presidential election result failed to go. INEC official tells court it failed to go. It was too, bulky for the server, probably. I'm just saying. Tinubu APC kick against tendering of statements. Obi 6 court order to interrogate INEC on ICT experts used for election. Police rescue abducted travelers in Ondo. 4 kidnapped after naming ceremony in Kwara community. A lot of headlines here. And then right underneath the pictorial here we have subsidy. Falana lists 22 corruption cases that cost Nigeria trillions of naira. Says Obasanjo paid 873 billion naira for fuel subsidy. Yaradua 749 billion naira. Jonathan 3.9 trillion naira. Buhari 11 trillion naira. Keeps getting bigger and bigger. Well, those are the headlines.
The subsidy matter has been overflowed. If the government will not summon the courage to tell us who took subsidy money and deal squarely with them, they may just do the pragmatic thing to say we're taking subsidy, which is what the president is doing. I think that even the labor unions, like I said yesterday, they accept and they agree
that it must go.
That subsidy has to go.
Must go.
Otherwise, nothing would have stopped them from embarking on the strike that they said they were going to embark on. So let's have the conversation. But I think perhaps the day will come, Moses, when we're able to summon the courage. I personally believe that if you check the way Nigeria even bled in the past 8 years, in terms of the ones that we even got to know, If any honest and sincere leader came up, like a Thomas Sankara, that understands the imperative of the huge tone of our debt, and really wants to deal with this matter squarely, I can tell you that all the money that have been stolen in Nigeria in the past 8 years, if brought out, will be enough to clear our debt. We are borrowing and stealing. What I mean, who does that? Who does that? Borrowing to pay subsidy, borrowing to pay salaries, you know, it's a mockery of all the economies we have in this country. It's like saying we are not a thinking nation. It's like saying we don't have people that can help us to come out with this. And more than 50 years of social science research in Nigeria has not yielded any serious answer to a national question. Are we not ashamed of that? From ABU Zaria to Ile-Ife to UI to Unilag to Uniben to Uniport to Unilorin, universities that from time to time produce world beaters. In fact, in the 70s and 80s, we were routinely and this was in the post-Shoyinka Achebe generation, we were routinely producing world beaters. All of a sudden, all of that petered out. It didn't peter out. Somebody put it in the dustbin. Somebody came up and said that, you know, Nigeria should no longer think of the life of the mind. Let's just live by what we see. Let man from now begin to live by bread alone. And that's what we now came to. That man shall live by bread alone. That's what we came to. We stopped to depend on the power of thought. We stopped to depend on how we can look at our variegatedness, our variety, our diversity, and to plug into that. A country that is so blessed with talent in the arts, talent in the sciences, talents in the... A Nigerian came very close to winning the Nobel Prize for, is it physics or chemistry, as far back as 2004, 2005, Professor Gabriel Oyibo. And we've had even Philip Megwali, we've had people who we are, and we have capacity to even do more. The man who won the Nobel Prize for literature about 2 years ago was a lecturer at ABU Zaria. We have the fertility of the land, both of its earth and of our minds. But that does not bring anything to bear in Nigeria, especially when it comes to our public governance spaces. It does not bring anything to bear. Somebody might have studied agriculture. They bring him and say, go and head the research and facility, whatever, in so and so place. He goes there. Can incompetence brook competence? Incompetence will brook further incompetence. So he goes there, then looks for his wives, for his in-laws and his village men and his... That was what we were seeing. And bring them together and say, oh yeah, fill these places. Allocation continues to flow. They keep on taking free money. 8 years, 7 years, 5 years down the line, they've run the place aground. So that even when government wanted to bring somebody now...
to fix it, it becomes...
The person now begins to work from ground up. Meanwhile, an institution that is 20 years old, at 20 years, should be building on 20 years of success. But in Nigeria, it's not the case. Do you know we even had an archaeologist as CBN governor before in Nigeria, in this country? An archaeologist, governor of the CBN. We've had it before. So this is where we are. We need to. If President Bola Tinubu, look, it's not just enough to say that he has these technical skills. Of course, we know he has them. But the latitude, the liberty, the vision, the capacity, and above all else, the philosophy of state. The Americans are known for their pragmatism. France for their realism. The Germans for their idealism. Dubai came up and borrowed a bit of American pragmatism and German idealism. You look at every country in the world has what it is known for. The values. In Nigeria, what we've now come to the end there, if you commit any crime, it's as if you can walk free.
In fact, the bigger the crime.
Up until up until the Jonathan years, Jonathan still sacked his minister and put on trial. In all the talk about PDP and corruption, we know. But even Obasa just sacked Fabian Osuja as Minister of Education and put him on trial. You know, this when he was Minister of Education, and I remember 2005, there was this issue of when the president said, don't lobby the Senate to increase your allocation. Sit back and use what I've given you. Also, you know, there was this whether Professor Chuji you know, whatever. Maybe he went behind and lobbied the senators. Whether he even did it or not, I mean, but the issue was that by the time the budget was to be passed, I think there was a discrepancy. So Obasanjo said, sadly, he has to go. Technocrat. Professor with selling qualities. Sadly, he had to go. When he let him go, he told the EFCC to pick him up. Did Buhari ever do that? Did he ever do that? A minister on your watch turned his ministry, and not just at the city, even the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. If you check very well, I'm sure that there are things you will see there. Because they were giving plenty money, that they were giving school feeding and all kinds of things. Later on, they said they were distributing COVID money, relief money to the poor. Then when we said, bring the list of the people that you gave money to, they said that to maintain their pride. You've created a lacuna for corruption. Humongous sums of money. So when people read these stories, imagine when people read the story of humanitarian ministry, how our oil sector was moving, was only changing names, putting an L after the C, and 2 trillion naira went missing. All trillions. Moses, trillions. Just money just disappeared. Please, the one that said NNPC failed, they didn't fail to remit anything, please. Don't. I celebrate the editor for his editorial craftsmanship, but please, it's not failed to remit. They should go back and check what really happened there. They didn't fail to remit anything. So they failed to remit, and what does that mean? It was when a minister was given 2.7 billion naira back in 1999 or 2000. So fix the minister power and fix the power sector. They said the money was embezzled. They said no. They said no. The money was diverted. Diverted how? Diverted from government coffers to your personal account. Say it was diverted. Moses, if I came here and took this monitor behind you and took it to my house, and nobody knew where it went, and people started asking where did it go, and I was there and I kept mute. What do you say? I diverted from the office to my house. I think it has a better name, a more direct name to call it. Okay, because the fact is this: the state has power to accuse. In the media, we say it's an allegation. In a court, it's got an allegation still, but the court calls even the person that has been accused, they accused. But today, we even see the police and government people saying somebody allegedly. Is it that they've forgotten that they're there to prosecute? They say the person allegedly. And I'm wondering, allegedly. Moses, when last did you hear anything about the INEC wreck in Adamawa? That one has gone. That's why we are in this country. What it is now is commit a crime, walk free.
And then issues are swept on
Commit a crime, walk free. Commit a crime, walk free. Believe me. We're in a bad place. We're in a very bad place.
All right. We do hope that the president will deliver Nigeria from that bad place and take us to, a place of, pride. That's the hope.
Amen.
Let's quickly touch on another daily, very, very quickly, before we wrap up newspaper headlines today. From the Nation newspaper, we have Tinubu's parley boosts Akpabio Abbas chances. Lawmakers intensify lobbying ahead. Presiding officers elections. Yari Kalu adamant. And then we have right on top of the nameplate, telcos accuse big banks of reluctance to pay USSD charges. Appeal court orders Makinde to pay ex-council chiefs 3.4 billion naira. The kind of security chiefs president needs by Olugbon. And then we have PDP seeks transfer of Ogun Kaduna tribunals to Abuja. NNPCL withholding 8.4 trillion naira from Federation account, says RMAFC. Now that story basically appears in all the dailies today. Presidential poll, okay, where we served, says Atiku's witnesses. All right. Speaker rejects no man's land tag for Lagos. All right, so yes, those are the headlines. We've touched on most of them already. What do you think?
The story about the president's meeting with the lawmakers in an attempt to resolve the the embassy, is it stalemate, or maybe they've run into a hard place and they're looking for how to wriggle their way out. Some people are reporting and saying that the meeting didn't quite
go well.
And another paper is saying that the meeting is boosting the chances of another of. So which one do we now believe? But I think that they will continue to judge. They will continue to have. In politics, the good thing is that in politics, 1 hour could be as long as an eternity. So they have enough time to sort out their problems. For me, like I always say, I'm happy when I see these things. If there was no conflict among them, you won't know what is really going on there. So it pays also. Let's give them the weekend. I believe that by the time we gather back here on June the 12th or 13th, and I mean those are crunch dates because June the 12th is Democracy Day. The president was part of the June 12 movement, the Nadeko struggles and the jungle years. So it will be great to see how we celebrate June 12 against the dark shadow of this bitter race for Speaker and President of the Senate. And then the following day will be D-Day. Let's also see who has the votes. I think, in my view, that the party or the president is avoiding a vote on the floor. Why
would that be? Because
that's the stark truth. No, so I think that this has been the bane of empire builders in the political space. Chief Awolowo, for example, never liked party primaries. Not that he wouldn't have them, but he never, because he would think, because once people are split on whom to vote for and how to vote, it has a way of creating division. Dividing people and say, okay, you are for that and for this, and sometimes the party interest could become the victim. Maybe because we've not matured to the point where you and I can have this discussion this morning and have a good laugh, and then the next minute we are on two different sides of a matter, and thereafter we could still come back together and be friends. We've not, maybe that maturity has not really set in. I personally strongly feel that what they want to do is to go on the floor of the Senate and affirm.
Right.
And simply affirm and say, House, is it carried?
And
Senate,
is that good for democracy?
Well,
especially at this time.
It is not good for democracy. It's not. But the question you want to ask yourself is, if I was president, would I like that or not?
Of course, the president would. It makes it easier for him to govern.
Exactly. So that's why I say I could care less. I just want to see how the drama plays out in the end. Yeah.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Cyril Abako, VOP analyst, for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Up next on VOP this morning, Lagos House of Assembly set to make laws to make sure the ethnic Yoruba accept themselves as its true owners. But the big question may just be, should we be indigents of Lagos? Who really should be afraid of losing the city? Well, that's our next conversation. Stay with us.
Lagos State House of Assembly says the legislature in the areas of property and economy to protect the native Yoruba in the state. Mudashiru Obasa, who was unanimously re-elected as Speaker after the proclamation of the state's 10th Assembly by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, made the remark in his acceptance speech. Now, the election of Obasa as the Speaker of the 10th Assembly means that he will be occupying the position for the third consecutive term. In his acceptance speech, the Speaker said Lagos is a Yoruba land and that laws passed by the Assembly will now be translated to Yoruba language. Obasa stated that the Assembly will ensure that laws are made to protect the interests of indigenous people of Lagos, stating further that lawmakers will reverse all that is reversible to protect the interests of the indigents. We may quote a number of things he said. For example, he also said this, that Lagos is a Yoruba land, as against the assertions of some people that it is a no man's land. Therefore, part of our legislative agenda is to ensure the translation of laws passed by this House to Yoruba language. Another one, he said, is we also aim at achieving our collective goals of creating a robust legislative framework that protects the interests of our people. Stating further as well, going forward in this wise, we are going to employ all legislative instruments for the support of the indigents of Lagos. There would be laws and resolutions in the areas of economy and commerce, property and titles, end quote. In the build-up to the February and March elections in Lagos, there was an uptick in the use of ethnically charged hate speech made on and off social media. The rhetoric heightened tension during the election with reports of intimidation and harassment of voters across the states. Interesting, don't you think? Well, in order for us to actually have this conversation further, we will have two interesting intellectual guests who will be joining us virtually on VOP this morning, and that is Sheye Oyetade, who is a public affairs analyst and, of course, a legal practitioner, Barrister Eze Oluche. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to VOP this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Well, elections are over, and this doesn't quite come off as hospitable tone, but let's also talk about the statement made by the Speaker. Do you think this is the right time for him to make these kind of statements? Barrister Eze Oluche, I will start with you. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are that the persons who occupy office should try to understand the what Constitution provides, because they actually swear an oath to protect and to serve and to under the Nigerian Constitution, to protect the integrity of the Constitution. So apparently it is very a man, his comments, who was just elected as the Speaker for the Lagos House of Assembly for the third time in a row, does not understand the basic rudiments of the Nigerian Constitution. Because what the Nigerian Constitution protects is Nigerians, protects their rights to freedom of movement, freedom to acquire property, freedom from compulsory acquisition of their properties anywhere in Nigeria. Anywhere in Nigeria, I must repeat that comment. So going ahead to say he will be making laws for one ethnic group or one people or one ethnicity or people indigents, as he has used that word, indigents, he will have to define what does it mean by indigent. Because if he refers to indigent as anything short of citizenship, then he might be veering off constitutional provisions. I mean, so the Nigerian Constitution is so very clear with regards to on Section 42, for instance, protects the right of any Nigerian to acquire property anywhere in the country. Outside the country, that's a different ballgame. But Lagos is, as the last time I checked, Lagos still remains an integral part of Nigeria, and thus subject to the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution. So if Mr. Obasa goes off and makes comments that are unconstitutional, all it means is that at the appropriate time, his comments will be checked under the Constitution to know whether indeed this man understands what he's doing by making such comments, or if he's actually trying to make a coup against the Nigerian Constitution. The Nigerian Constitution does not discriminate between Nigerian from Gabarungala in Borno State, Mainchi in Sokoto, Ikom in Cross or Igbokuta in Lagos. The Nigerian Constitution provides for the Nigerians wherever they are. If he begins to misinterpret it, I mean, it's quite unfortunate. But this is just a shootout of what transpired during the last elections, when a political party went to the extent of raising ethnocentric and religious bigotry to a very high extent that it almost led to breakdown of law. It led to breakdown of law and order in some areas. So we should perhaps let him give it a try, so that we will not be. Do we have a country, or are we just managing a contraption? If Mr. Obasa feels he can go out on such rants, maybe he's actually telling us that Nigeria does not exist, that Nigerian Constitution does not exist. If that is what he's about to say, let us watch what he does. Let us see how he practicalizes the hate and the bile he spilled out. And then at the end of the day, the court will determine whether indeed the Constitution is a fluke or it's a useless document, or whether we are actually bound by a constitution in Nigeria.
All right, Barrister Sheye, Mr. Sheye Oyetade, good morning. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
So it's important that I need to hear from you. We do know that a few days ago, RFI, in a gathering of his colleagues and, same indigenous as well, made some statements which a lot of Nigerians reacted to. He made statements that were actually biased in terms of religion, and it raised questions as to were some things that occurred during President Muhammadu Buhari's administration deliberate. He made statements to say that preference will be given to those who are of the same religious thoughts and line with, with the government, with his administration. Also, he said he was trying to prove a point that Muslim ticket is not going to deter them from winning the elections. In fact, it was going to be a strong force for them to win. Talked about giving preference to communities that actually gave them more votes during the last elections, whereby he was re-elected as a governor of Kaduna State. Now, hearing Mudashiru Obasa make a statement also in this same line, what exactly is giving these individuals the brazenness to say or make utterances that they make and nothing happens? Recall that the Ezendibo of Ajao State made something like this, a statement that one would contend to be in the same line of thought. And in the night, he was whisked away by the DSS. So what makes these individuals different? What is their own spine? What makes it different that we do not have anyone in authority questioning the remarks they made in a public space?
Well, thank you very much. I want to think that we careful. The statement made by Speaker Obasa actually is something that can be a good sensitivity as a people. If we are talking about a nation, we should be sensitive to how we make inflammatory statements that can be classified as discriminatory. Well, Nigeria is a multi-ethnic state. It's made up of different ethnic nationalities. We must not shy away from that. And every ethnic nationality has a right to, preserve its own cultural values and cultural assets. But if we are talking about nationhood, this has been the pain of Nigeria in its journey towards nationhood. For a long time, we've had it of should we adopt state of origin, state of residence as against the determination of rights and privileges based on state of residence. There are so many people, Hausa people, that have been, to just mention a few, that has been living in Lagos from the time of their birth. And if you now begin to make discriminatory statements that Lagos belongs to Yoruba people, it doesn't belong to any other person, I think is emotional, is political, and is unfortunate. Truly, Lagos has an history. It belongs to the Aworis by virtue of history. But we have moved into becoming a nation, and there should be, all of these things should not become statements that discriminate. We should not be discriminatory. Igbo people have contributed immensely to the Lagos state, economically speaking and otherwise. So we should shy away from that. Politicians play to the gallery when it comes to things like this, but statesmen should speak now, because politicians are only concerned about the next election, and they do everything to make sure they win the next election. For statesmen, they think consideration. It's an unfortunate statement. I must say I don't believe in ethnic balkanization. But historically speaking, history must be
All right, now
taught in
it's
such a way that this land belongs to
all right then,
so so
Chaya.
and
I'm
so
going to
people.
stay with you for a bit on this one. It's not enough to say that politicians are playing to the gallery. We saw what happens. What happened during the elections, where an individual, I'm not going to name names because I mean it's in public space already, came online in a video that trended and said, if you're not coming out to vote, if you are, he went ahead to say, Igbo people, said something like Igbo people should not, not vote or something, something like that. He made statements threatening people that may not be coming out to vote, and nothing was done about it. Don't you think ignoring such statements is what is spiraling into the legislature now, the legislative chambers now, because statements have been made, people have ignored, nobody was brought to book, nobody was called to question, and now we are hearing that senators are beginning to consider, are beginning to consider making laws that will deprive some other people, laws that will hamper investment in a state that is highly populated by different people from different places in the world.
Just like I said, I think it's barbaric. It's a barbaric emotional display. People have contributed immensely to the growth and development of the economic life of Lagos State, and they are not Yoruba people. We must recognize that fact. And then the fact that somebody spoke during the election and he became very ethnic and was not questioned, I think is an affront that it should not be encouraged. The law should go after such a person because there is still, according to the Constitution, freedom of association, and all of that should be protected. It not support such statements, and the law enforcement agent should have really called that person to question. And I think the governor of Lagos State came up to make an address that was all embracing. He wasn't inflammatory in his own statement.
It's not enough to say. I mean, my point here is this: we've heard statements, we've heard people say, "Oh no, we condemn this, we condemn that," but on the ground there are undertones to depict that there is some sort of there's an understanding from indigenous people. I don't want to call them indigenous people because but there's an understanding against from some Lagosians against non-indigents. On this channel, I said something. I talked about my experience one time when I walked into a store to get something, and I got talking with a high-ranking officer. I mean, well, he was high-ranking, of course. A high-ranking officer of LASMA, the yellow one, the guys that put on yellow.
Yes,
That's LASMA, right?
yes.
Yeah, a high-ranking officer of LASMA, and we got talking. And he made a statement. Now, it's not about whether I am Yoruba or not, but the statement was, it called for caution. He made a statement. He said, and this was after elections, all right? He said that they have decided, and by they, he meant LASMA officials. I mean, LASMA is a Lagos State organization. He said they have decided that when they stop any car owner and they check your driver's license and you're not a Yoruba man, they will frustrate you. Now, this statement was made in a store in Ajawo Estate. And Ajawo Estate, we know, is highly populated by people from other extractions, other parts of Nigeria. And he is one person who was, supposed to coordinate activity of LASMA in Ajawo Estate. And I told him, why would you want to segregate and pick out Igbos to torment with your laws and policies? And we laughed it off. All right. What do you make of that? Because it is one thing for, honorable members to make a statement, and then it trickles down. People beneath them accept these things and run with it. And if nobody, it's not just enough to come out and say, we are against this. Somebody should be brought to book. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I'm a Yoruba person to the core. And
we seem to be having a problem with your audio.
Yes,
You might want to repeat that because we have a problem with your audio. So please, you can repeat that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, clearly too.
I said I'm a Yoruba man. By my name, I'm a Yoruba person. And I consider such a statement to be very careless. Yoruba people, and I, with every sense of responsibility, the most disloyal people to their own language and values among the major ethnic nationalities in Nigeria are Yoruba people. Most Yoruba people are not loyal to their language, they are not loyal to their values. And compared to the way Igbo people and Hausa people and Fulani people are loyal to their values and their languages. Nobody put a gun to your head to sell land. Nobody put a gun to your head to sell houses. When you were exchanging all these things for money, you did not know that you are losing out. You didn't protect your heritage. Now people have encroached in and they are dominating your political space, your economic space. All you have to do is just to be friendly with them and to persuade them. Making statements, it will only endanger the life of that society. And whoever makes such statement as an official in government should be called to book, will be called to question by enforcement authorities. That's my take.
All right, then. Okay, go ahead.
All right, Barrister Ezalucha, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
All right. I would implore you, possibly your earpiece, you should put it a little bit close to your mouth because you keep fading out and, you come in and you fade out, yes. So, do you consider the statement made by Obasa deliberate? There have been a lot of critics who have said that, basically, from the presidential elections, possibly because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did not win Lagos State, it became apparent that the APC political party and possibly supporters of the All Progressives Congress who reside in Lagos, they realized that a lot of things have changed, and that nonchalancy and lackadaisical attitude of we own Lagos, nothing is happening, definitely Bola Ahmed Tinubu is going to win in Lagos. They took things for granted that a lot of things could have changed. And when they realized that at the presidential election, it was a different political party that won, a political party that was not prominent, maybe they realized that things have actually changed. Do you think that is what promulgated for Obasa making that statement?
Well, this tendency has been in that issue of the votes in Lagos. To think that any single ethnic nationality was what swayed the votes in Lagos. I can assure you that many people from the Southwest were not happy with the way things were going on, from the North, from the South. So it was not just any particular ethnic group that made the AP or the PDP lose in Lagos. Lagos is a very cosmopolitan state that has people from all walks of life, and they are quite enlightened. So the politics in Lagos might not be the politics in a state or Anambra or Ebonyi, because everybody is in Lagos, and most people in Lagos are quite enlightened. So it would be very wrong to arrogate the failure of the APC or Tinubu himself to win in Lagos to any particular ethnic group. It was a broad, statewide affair. Having said that, I would want to say that a fish rots from the head. What Obasa is saying, a reflection of what he knows, even the Mr. President has said himself. If you recollect, between the elections of 25 February and that of the state governors on the 18th of March, after a visit to the Oba of Lagos, the current president was captured in an interview where he was describing how some people come to Lagos as 12-year-olds with nothing the line, they now want to dominate the politics. So you see that Obasa is taking a nudge from Mr. President and making comments which he thinks will put him in good stead of the president. One only hopes that now that Mr. Tinubu has become the president of the Federal Republic, he will become more nationalistic and more patriotic and refrain from comments that overheat the politics. Because clearly what transpired in Lagos in March 18th during the governorship elections, which was orchestrated by somebody who is very close to him, MC Oluoma. I don't know why we are shying away from mentioning names. That is the name everybody was shying away from mentioning. That was the comments made by MC Oluoma and the other kingpins of the APC, which were clearly putting up bigotry and ethnocentric comments, flowed from what they perceived the current president now, Mr. Tinubu, would like. But for goodness sake, politics is over, like everybody's saying. So the issue of what should be we should be concerned about now is governance. How do we move the polity forward? Continued reference, like Obasa has made, to comments that are clearly show bigotry is very unfortunate. And why is nobody addressing these issues? I remember during the last time Mr. M. Oluoma made his comments against Igbos in Lagos, the first PPRO, that's the Nigerian Police Force Public Relations Officer, said it was a joke. There is nowhere in the world where you treat genocidal comments as a joke. Now, unfortunately, when that joke even materialized in terms of violence against people, there was no further comments from the police. They kept quiet. And what they did was to arrest one local character who calls himself Ezendibo, which is a character that is meaningless. He was arrested for making comments that I will import some people and all that stuff. He's still being detained. So it shows clearly that even in the polity in Nigeria, the country is structured in a manner that moves easily against some people and keeps quiet or encourages unconstitutional and even criminal tendencies from other areas. So that is what we should be worried about. And now, this we can't just keep on being quiet and say, okay, he has said it. Tomorrow, Mr. Obasa will come and say, I am sorry, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that we see it on the ground. What you mentioned about the last fellow, maybe he said it to you, but people see it in reality. People see that when they follow other cars online, and then there is a problem, the person who gets picked up is the person who is non-Yoruba. And these are what we should be worried about. Because if we are thinking of Lagos or Nigeria entering the 21st century with amongst other countries, we're trying to say we're going to be the biggest city in the world in so and so years. We are not being any bigger city if we are neck deep in ethnocentric bigotry. Some of us go to London, go to the US, and they will buy properties, and because of the properties we acquire, we become citizens of those countries. Now in Nigeria, your fellow countrymen are there, and you are threatening them, making comments that are inflammatory, and when these inflammatory comments leads to the expected violence, then the police and army will now come out and say, okay, people are becoming violent. Well, the violence is breeding now, because I may not be in Lagos, but I have relatives who are in Lagos. If this message goes around the country that you are not welcome, you're not welcome, you now look around and say, okay, why are you welcome in my own place? That's why I say the people who hold political offices should decide by themselves. Are they swearing an oath to uphold the Constitution? If yes, do they understand what constitutional provisions are? If no, then they should be educated before they occupy such high stools as the office of a speaker, or even whatever public office, even a last mile official, or even a police.
Barrister Eze,
they must understand what the Constitution provides.
Barrister Eze, let me try and get maybe a bit of balance here. We know that when it comes to education, preference is given to indigents of a state. If you to get admission into tertiary institutions, preference is given. You know, you hear that if you're an indigent of a state, you pay lesser in terms of tuition, and non-indigents will pay more. Isn't that allowed by law? Isn't that allowed by?
That is it is actually not allowed by law. It is unconstitutional.
But we see
nobody has actually gone to. It is unconstitutional, clearly.
Okay, but
any law that if the law says, because the law does not recognize
where I'm driving at.
What the law
where I'm driving at is
good.
If we have allowed that, I'm just trying to balance things up now. If we have allowed that in Nigeria, where you go to Kano, or you go to Enugu, or you go to Ibadan, and as an indigene, you're made to pay lesser tuition fees as against other people. I mean, even in Imo State, it happens. And that has been allowed to hold fray for a long time. Is it now wrong to say that if you're an indigent, certain rights should be given to you when it comes to acquisition of property? Just trying to balance this up.
Yes, good. You see, that issue of admission affects children or youths who are like trying to gain admission and they have 1 year. So they're always thinking of, okay, why will I lose 1 year? And then let me just move on and do something else in another place. So nobody has actually bothered to challenge it. But I assure you, if that challenge is brought against any state which gives out discriminatory prices or school fees based on the so-called indigenship, the Constitution will not allow that. The courts will hopefully not allow that. What the court can allow is if you give discriminatory school fees based on states of residence. Because when you reside in this place and you pay your taxes and the taxes are used to fund those schools, then you have all rights to those facilities provided by that state government. But when you come to the issue of proprietary rights, properties, acquisition, and all that stuff, I am sure more people will be ready to challenge it, because it's not a one-off thing. It's not a 6 months, 1 year problem you can just avoid. It is maybe you have spent 10, 20 years building a property, and then somebody comes overnight and says, okay, because you're not from this state, you have to lose this property. Because you're not from this state, you have to do this and that. Then it will be challenged. So, Nigerians should be more willing to challenge laws that affect their constitutional rights. But like I said,
Barrister,
the issue of education has...
Barrister Ezra, I need more clarification. So, I'm a product of schooling in the north, right? Very cold north. Can you hear me now?
Sure, I can hear you.
So there was a time the federal government was more about uniting all ethnic groups, meaning that was what brought about the federal government colleges. Now the idea is that preference is given to non-indigents of the states to gain access or admission to the schools provided, especially either primary or secondary schools. Of course, you have to reside in the school. At that point in time, when you take a common entrance exam and you want to go to a federal government college, you are allowed to, for example, if you reside in Lagos or you're not even an indigent of Lagos and you want to school in the north or in the east and you write your common entrance examination, at the time then, they allow non-indigents or non-residents of that particular state to gain admission first. Also, the state governments of each state usually do what they call scholarship programs, where they give scholarship programs to residents and indigents of their states. Now, when those who do not reside in the states want to gain education in that state, they give you quick access to gain admission, but you are not given scholarship compared to the indigents of that state. Now, the question is, why has that method stopped? Now, it's not it may not be in the Constitution, but the idea was to create that sense of harmony. It's called pro-unitate or pro-united, at the time. Why has that stopped? Why are we now beginning to see strong ethnic bias, strong religious bias within almost every state that constitutes the Nigerian Federation?
Well, one reason I can give clearly for that was the horrible 8-year tenure of Muhammadu Buhari. Because during that period, ethnic bigotry was elevated to the status of a national policy. If you recollect, Mr. President clearly came out and said he cannot be expected to treat states that gave him 5% of their votes the same way he treats states that gave him a higher percentage of votes. And we also saw that in his appointments, in his mannerisms, even in his visitations, Mr. President then elevated the vice of ethnic bigotry to a national policy. So that made, not just in the Southeast, virtually every part of Nigeria was now clamoring to pull out of the country. We saw the Odua People's Movement rise in the Niger Delta. There were in the Southeast, there was the IPOB. Even in the North, there were groups who wanted to secede from Nigeria due to the blatant and very glaring ethnocentric positioning of the government under Muhammadu Buhari. Nigeria had never come so close to disintegration because of the policies of the person at the helm of affairs. That is why we are hoping that despite what might have transpired in the past, that Mr. President now, Bola Tinubu, will start afresh, will remove all those toga of ethnicity or ethnic bigotry or religious shooting, and decide that he wants to be president of a federal republic of Nigeria and not president of one ethnic group. We hope that when he begins to reel out his appointments, when he begins to make his military chiefs, he will factor in all these factors, all that will engender national cohesion, and not follow in the footsteps of what Muhammadu Buhari did. Because if he does, if president continues in the steps Muhammadu Buhari went, my dear, we don't need to be a nuclear scientist to know that you can push people to the wall, but they are not bound to go by the wall where you push them to. That we have to make a drastic change from what Buhari pushed us to. With regard to the educational criteria that we had before, yes, the national unity schools were set up to engender national unity, and that was, you can say it was encouraging people from everywhere to come in. Those policies are positive and they are most welcome. But even like you said, for scholarships, a state can only give out money to people whose parents or who pay taxes within their state. You cannot pick from Anambra or Ebonyi and come to Lagos and say you want some facilities which Lagos residents, their taxes have made available. That is not what we're talking about here. Right. You only reap from what you sow. So right, if Lagos State was saying, okay, only those who have properties or those who pay taxes here will benefit, we say, okay, no problem. But if you say, because your name is Okeke, or Mahmoud, or Akpabio, and you're not called Andrika or Shukomi, you cannot benefit from Lagos State, and that will be wrong. Even the Lagosians, if the state goes that route, I assure you, indigenous Lagosians will now rise up and begin to tell us that even Mr. Tinubu himself is not a Lagosian, that some of the governors who have ruled Lagos are not Lagosians, and some members of the House Assemblies or who are representing Lagos in the Senate and the House of Reps are not also Lagosians. So that route is a route that will do nobody any good, because then Lagosians, the true Lagosians, and we know them, like the other guest has said, they are Warriors who own Lagos initially, and even the Benins, because the Oba of Benin claims, the Oba of Lagos has told us that they have some ancestry with Benin. Will come in and say, okay, we are the indigents. So let us abide by the Constitution so that we can know where we are and not begin to raise unnecessary schisms by relying on primordial ethnocentric bigotry. Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Barrister Eze Eluche. I'm going to come to you now, Mr. Sheye Oyetade. Now, you are one who is close to, I would like to say, the seat of power right now, because you are really close to the president. And I want to believe that being close to him, what would you say are, his the things that he wants to put in place? Because he has said he wants unity. He wants Nigerians to come together and live together as one. But then we're getting from stooges of the president contrary statements. And well, till now, we've not. I think the Lagos State. The governor of Lagos said something against that. Yes, well, the governor of Lagos has said something, but what would you say are the thoughts of Mr. President on issues like this, especially statements made by the Speaker of Lagos House of Assembly?
Issues that are along ethnic lines.
Issues along ethnic lines, of course.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I think we should classify the statement of the Speaker as private statement. It doesn't reflect the tendencies of Mr. Tinubu, who is now the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And we know from Mr. Tinubu's antecedents that when he was governor, when he had the opportunity to sit as governor of Lagos State, he was the first to bring in non-Yoruba people into governance in Lagos. He brought in Ben Akabweze, an Igbo man. He brought in Fola Atowori from Delta State to become the commissioner for lands. That's the first commissioner for lands in Lagos State as a non-indigenous. So Mr. Tinubu's tendencies are not like that of Mr. Obasa, and it doesn't reflect the mind of Mr. Tinubu. His mind has not changed. Mr. Tinubu himself is married to an Ishekiri woman, Mrs. Tinubu. So I don't see this flying around Mr. Tinubu's mind, and he will not support such a primordial tendency. I think Mr. Obasa is just playing to the gallery, and unfortunately speaking, and such tendencies should be challenged by affected non-indigenous of Lagos, and there should be a public outcry against this.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Sheye Oyetade. We'll stay with you as we go into the second topic for the day. We are looking at, well, it's early days.
Sorry. Let me just make a comment with regards to what you said about Mr. Tinubu.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Please.
Yeah, I wanted to just say that I agree with what Mr. Sheye said there. I agree with what Mr. Sheye said about Mr. Tinubu's tendencies. Let me even chip in that. When I launched my book in 2010, Mr. Bola Tinubu was the chief launcher, and he was magnanimous. So he has a history showing a national disposition. That now he's there as the president, these things will continue. And he already has presidents who we had by now would have responded effectively to comments. Because that is, you need to set the template this onset. Show the world, show Nigerians that you are going to be a president for Nigeria. I would have liked a situation whereby the moment this statement by Mr. Obasa gained currency in the public domain, the press assistant or whoever, the immediate inner chambers, like even from the chief of staff, who is Dr. Miller, should have issued a comment condemning Obasa's comments on behalf of Mr. President. If such a comment had come out, had ensued, I assure you that automatically you will see that there will be tidal change in a positive change in favor of Mr. Tinubu. But when there is silence, as if nobody has heard of it, then it gives people some goosebumps. So, Mr. Shea, please pass the message on. Right. Let Mr. President know that this raging issue is burning, and just a comment from his office condemning the utterance of the new Lagos Speaker of the Lagos State Assembly will go a long way to beginning to build that very critical and necessary bridge which we want for this government to be sustainable and to garner the trust and confidence of Nigerians from wheresoever. Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you very much. We'll, as I did say earlier, we'll like to keep you gentlemen a little bit longer as we go into the second topic for today. And we do know that it's early days for the Bola Tinubu presidency, but there's an old question on the president's table, and the question is, will you release Nnamdi Kanu, Mr. President? Now, that's a conversation that we will delve into in a bit. Stay with us, please.
medical care, particularly for his ear. He said Kanu had gone through so much trouble medical care for the IPOB leader, but that the SSS did not allow that to happen. He attached a copy of a letter to the tweet. The letter was signed also by the lawyer. Now, the letter, which was dated the 6th of June and addressed to the Director General of the SSS, was in response to a medical report of Mr. Kanu believed to have been made by the SSS medical unit. It is now exactly 2 years since Nnamdi Kanu was arrested on Kenyan soil and extradited to Nigeria to face a 7-count terrorism charge. The IPOB leader was subsequently rearranged on an amended 15-count charge on November 21. Now, this, of course, is the scenario, the current circumstance of Nnamdi Kanu, the proscribed leader of IPOB. Now, I'm going to go ask this question to you, Mr. Sheye Oyetade. It's important that I hear from you what you think about this. For so long now, Nnamdi Kanu has had several health issues. Before President Muhammadu Buhari exited office, we had Eze Ndigbo, try to seek his plea. We also had Chukwuma Soludo, the current governor of Anambra State, also trying to seek the plight of former President Muhammadu Buhari in order to show that his administration intends to exude an aura of unity, peace, and tranquility between his administration and, of course, Nnamdi Kanu, an agitation for self-actualization, that he would speak with the Attorney General of the Federation to drop the charges against Nnamdi Kanu under conditions which the elders of Igbo land said they will make sure he adheres to, but that did not happen. One of the also questions with this new administration was that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as he stated in his inaugural speech about national inclusion and cohesion, that one of the aspects of him extending a hand of peace would be him having to, seek and request for the release of Nnamdi Kanu as soon as possible. Why do you think that has not actually taken place? Sheye Oyetade, are you there with us? Hello?
Yeah. President Bola Tinubu
Okay.
is just spending, I think he's, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can
you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right. President Bola Tinubu, okay. President Bola Tinubu is just 14 working days in office, 14, 15 working days, and he's just having his 15th working day in the office. And there are quite a lot of issues that he has been dealing with, one of which is just like you said, he made in a statement on the inauguration day that he's going to do everything to seek national cohesion, engender national unity. But this is a matter of the law. The case of Kanu is actually before a competent court of jurisdiction. So he will need counsel from the Attorney General that has not been appointed to look into this matter. So I think in the process of time, a political solution can be actually engaged to get Nnamdi Kanu out of detention. But right now, there's nothing they can do because there is no Attorney General in place. There's no Minister of Justice in place. So he will need counsel from such a person to be able to know what to do politically. That's my opinion.
All right. I would like to ask Barrister Eze Luche this question. Barrister Eze, on several occasions, the SSS has been asked to release Nnamdi Kanu for medical checkup. This is not the first time Aloy Ejimako has been coming to actually say that he has been pleading that his client actually needs medical care, medical attention. The last time it was about, Nnamdi Kanu was experiencing a serious cough, and that also the air within the cell or the custody where he's being kept is affecting his health. That was not attended to. At this time around is also concerning his ear. And of course, based on the fact that at the SSS medical facility, there's actually a written document from the doctor prescribing that Nnamdi Kanu needs to seek proper assistance, healthcare assistance. Why has SSS not responded to the clamor, or rather the call of the medical team within the SSS to make sure that Nnamdi Kanu gets the independent medical care that is required of him while his case is still in court?
Well, thank you. I think I will agree with Mr. Sheye on that issue. that Mr. President is just new on the board, new on on the governance of the nation, and he may seek advice. But my greater worry is the over politicization of the entire Nnamdi Kanu case, and the likelihood that some of the lawyers may be using this case to grandstand and to acquire unnecessary publicity over the issue, leaving their clients to suffer on the hands of the law. Um, this is a purely legal case. Left to me, I would have urged that there should be expedited trial. I mean, so that at the end of the day, we will know exactly was any crime committed, and if there was no crime committed, then was the DSS used unlawfully to for extraordinary rendition of a citizen of Nigeria from Kenya, and then this case needs to be tried. The clamor for release and that this thing should be ended is deceptive because it will not. At the end of the day, this what is still burning, the burning issues will remain. Let the issues be tried and expeditiously before a court of law, and let these matters be resolved. Let us know if indeed, if in truth there is continuing discrimination against the peoples that this young man claims to represent. Let the issues be brought to the fore and let this government, let the Nigerian state take responsibility for its actions. The current president has for years been a stickler to using the legal system, the laws, the courts, to advance his cause. So I believe he will actually follow the rule of law and then see that there's expeditious resolution of this litigation, this criminal prosecution or persecution of Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, and not just begging for release, because some people are just trying to say, okay, I was the one that begged for his release and he's now out, so I will take the glory. Come on. The issues that led to this crisis, have they been addressed? Mr. Nnamdi Kanu has been there for 2 years, like you rightly said. That's enough time to even address and prosecute this matter. If you don't prosecute it, then it clearly means that there is persecution. And this persecution has led to countless deaths in the Southeast. If I tell you how many businesses have been rendered useless by the entire persecution of this young man, it's incalculable. So merely saying, okay, walk out of detention and let that be over, will not address the issues in my thinking. The matter has to be addressed to the fullest, and then if there were errors, if DSS was used, then DSS has to be restructured and made more amenable to the rule of law. You cannot just be a Department of State Security and be going about arresting and dehumanizing Nigerians. They are sick, you don't allow them to have treatment. And then, so we should be very careful. I'm not of the school of thought that doors should be open and let Nnamdi Kanu just walk out. If he needs treatment, he should be given the highest possible treatment so that nothing happens to him untowardly in detention. But we should be more focused on expeditious trial of the matter so that the issues can be addressed finally.
All right, then. Thank you very much. We know that the governor of Enugu State, Peter Mba, is pushing for this. Well, the way you're making it sound like, he wants to take the glory. If the request is, if he gets the request, then he takes the glory.
Let me chip in. Peter Mba has issues with his NY certificate. He wants to be, yes, he has, when I mean issues, he has very serious issues with his NY certificate that NYC brought in an affidavit that Peter Mba's NYC is a forged document.
Okay.
Soludo himself is also trying to gain some currency, some publicity. So those who are clamoring for release, will you release him today and pick him up tomorrow? Okay, this will not be the first time Nnamdi Kanu was released.
May have been forged, but that's not what we are discussing today. Okay. He still managed to become the governor. So we should look at the electoral, the process that allowed him to be the governor of the state. Now he tried to put an end to the Monday stay at home in the state, in Enugu State, but that didn't work because there was a lot more fear in the people than trust in the government that if they came out on Mondays, nothing would happen to them. So people stayed home, and then he's also one of the things he put forward was that he has met the president and said the president should release Nnamdi Kanu because that has been seen as the bane of the unrest in the southeast. the continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu. Now, don't you think if he is released, we might see peace in the southeast?
Thank you. I'm speaking to you from Owerri. The reality is this. The blunt reality is this. The Nnamdi Kanu faction of IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu's I declared that they're not interested in any Monday sit-at-homes. They have clearly stated that severally. What they celebrated was the May 30th Biafra Day. But the so-called sit-at-homes have been hijacked by criminal elements across the southeast. There is nothing like an organized structure that makes it. And this has been complicated by complicity by law enforcement agencies. I'm saying this because I am close to even the policemen and the others who are in this state. They deliberately refuse to do their duties. They shy away from being policemen in the southeast for God reasons. So the sit-at-homes which you see being observed on Monday is not directly as a result of Mr. Nnamdi Kanu's detention. Criminal elements have hijacked the process, and secondly, the law enforcement agencies have refused to do their jobs as law enforcement agencies.
Barrister
They
Ezeluche, do
have
you
shied
think it's
away from their
because the law
responsibilities.
enforcement agents have been killed on several occasions by these faceless men? Do you think that's the reason why they've not
I
been
can assure you that more policemen and soldiers have been killed in Borno State, in Katsina State, but they are still working in those states. So that you have killed or shot 2 or 3 policemen does not mean that the police and the DSS should not go after those criminal elements who are killing them. They know their hideout. They should move against those elements and not use the detention of Nnamdi Kanu. You have had their broadcast. The IPOB has said they do not want this sit-at-homes. So how is it effective? What is making it continue? It happens this way. In some rural areas, criminals will just come out and seize cars and say, sit at home. And that fear permeates the society because the police and the military refuse to step in and arrest these criminal elements. They shy away from their jobs. You cannot tell me that 2 or 3 policemen were killed. So over 10,000, over 5,000.
All right, then.
All right.
We seem to be having a network problem
Issue,
there.
yeah.
I don't know if we can take one more question for Sheye. If all right,
All
then.
right,
Unfortunately,
okay.
well, that's that's how far we can stretch it today.
But Moses, if we need to, like, a little bit from what I would have loved what Share or Itani needed to say about this. But, he talked about the complacency of the security of the Nigerian police force in having to apprehend these individuals. But on several occasions, we've seen the brazen attack on these guys. It has become so bad that it cut off their head, put them in several junctions to show a sense of nobody understands what it is. So imagine putting yourself in this situation, in the shoes of those policemen. Would you want to act like, oh, I get power, I get authority?
Well, it goes beyond that. I think the police, the military, they've always been clamoring for having proper gear, proper ammunition. When you approach an opposition and then you hear the sound of the guns that they use, that's enough to put fear in you.
Yeah.
And these are fathers, these are brothers, these are uncles, these are aunties, these are mothers. So the fear of trying to do your job, and you go out there and the possibility that you might be overrun, that in itself is playing a part in this. Uh, what I think should be done is they should be things should be done to make them trust the system even more. If they know that, look, if I serve like I have been conscribed to serve, my family will be protected.
Okay.
My family will be provided for. The place I live, I mean, maybe one day we'll talk about the place, the barracks
Where they reside.
where they reside. These places they don't look habitable.
That's true.
Now, but when you know that, look, your family is well taken care of. They live in a
You can put
relatively
your life on the line.
comfortable environment, and even if you die serving the nation, you know that your death will not be in vain.
That's true. That's
But in
another
situations
aspect to
whereby
consider.
you serve and then you drop off along the way and nothing is done, it will now take religious organizations to cater
try to
for the widows,
That's true.
then nobody would want to lay their life on the line. Oh well. Kayla will be joining us shortly for
Choma Innocent. Kayla
and
is,
Choma Innocent.
yes.
Okay. Oh, Choma Innocent will join us
Yes, for
Oh,
entertainment.
great, great. So we'll take a little breather now. Choma will step into the studio and take us through the world of entertainment. All right, so it's the end of the week, broadcast week, of course, and we have Chioma Innocent with us. She'll be taking us into the world of entertainment. What's up, Chioma?
I'm very well. Good
Welcome.
morning this morning.
So what's been happening? What's going on?
Quite a lot, but let's start with the less dramatic.
Okay.
All right. So even though we're starting with an actress, but yes, this is less dramatic than every other thing on the bulletin this morning. Nollywood actress Zainab Balogun has recently opened up about her long-standing battle with the endometriosis and the significant impact it had on her marriage. You know, in an intimate interview, she candidly shared her experiences with the medical disorder that has affected her for over 2 decades. Endometriosis is a condition in which the tissue lining the uterus grows outside of it, leading to symptoms such as severe pain, heavy bleeding, irregular periods, and potential fertility issues. Okay. You know, when asked about her husband's role, she said he's been very supportive, and I think that is one way to help when one is going through this life-changing ailments.
That's true. You know, in Nigeria, Moses, we have in the Hanakbo, let me speak it in Igbo, monitoring committee. Once you have married, the next thing they'll be asking you is, how far now?
When?
When now?
The womb watchers.
They're gonna help you. They'll be helping you to check your tummy. Okay, last week it was flatter. This month it should be like this. And when it doesn't happen, they begin to attach a lot of things. You know, she's a Yoruba. I think she married an Igbo man, right? So they'll start asking questions, that kind of a thing. Did you think she went through this kind of experience?
I believe it will happen. We are in Nigeria, we are in an African society, and it will definitely happen. Even if you don't want to have kids, there's just this thought that society has that if you don't want to have kids, why did you now get married. So like she said, the womb watchers will be there, people who will be like, then you have to now start explaining to everyone. It's been years. I'm glad she's coming out to say this now. That certain ailments, I feel like in Nigeria, if it's not malaria and your body is hot and you are throwing up and you're visibly getting thinner and thinner, it's not serious. It's just like the way we don't do so much about mental health. So now she has to start explaining to people that it does not actually concern. But I'm glad that she had that support, you know, that backbone from the husband, from the family, and she was able to overcome this and talk about it now. I hope she goes on to become an advocate for other women suffering from this condition as well. Let's move on to another actress who I have not seen in a movie for a very long time. Caroline Danjuma. She has expressed her desire to remarry her ex-husband, Musa Danjuma. The couple, who had been married for about 9 years, went through a divorce in 2016. However, in a recent interview, the actress shared a longing to return to her former spouse on one condition. She said, if God reveals that he's the man destined for me, then yes, I would love to go back to my ex-husband.
Wait. Okay. Is that all there is?
Well, you know, she revealed that there were just some irreconcilable differences between them. If she was of this age and the experience she has now, that she would not have divorced the man. If she was as wise as she is now.
Okay,
then
let me understand something. She would not have divorced him if she was wiser.
Experienced and wise.
It was
Then,
as experienced as she is now.
As she is now. But then she also said something about if God said...
If God reveals.
If God reveals that
She
he
will
is
go
the
back.
destined man for me.
I don't understand.
Doesn't
It
it
sounds
confusing?
very
Like,
sounds very
you want
ironic.
the-
Sounds
you
paradoxical.
wished you had not left, but then you're asking, okay, you have a desire to go back, but then you're seeking revelation from God
What is this?
that if he's the one for you,
My question would be,
What's
was
this
it not the man for you when you married him?
Did you
And
watch?
they have 3 children.
Did you watch the interview when she had that interview where she made all
and
those
the beautiful
expressions?
thing is she has kept the name.
Yes,
No, yes,
and that's why she's kept
that
the
was
name.
that was what I was asking you. If you had seen the full interview where she made all
I
this,
didn't.
even the person who was asking the question was also
Asking this
responding the way you're responding.
Okay.
It's a funny thing because it's kind of like you have the fish in hand, you let it go, and then you're regretting and hoping the fish swim back to you. With this revelation, it would take her, I believe it would take her quite a bit. Now the man knows that he's the prize, and you know she's missing him.
Oh well, I don't think that matters. I don't think that matters. Whether you know, that shouldn't make anybody feel special. Bottom line is they were married, they were husband and wife, and obviously. People will, if you ever bonded with someone and then you went your separate ways, you will miss a few things about the person.
Is it better to separate or divorce? Is separation not better? Maybe possibly with
Well,
separation you can
if
come
Because
back.
it's been 7 years.
If it was separation, then they could easily come back.
But now they're divorced. That means divorce decision shouldn't
It's
be
final.
a hasty.
It shouldn't be a hasty
thing
you see.
for couples
But
to make.
It's not impossible if he's on the same page with her and he feels okay, time to pick up. I mean, as I said, I think I've said that here before. It is not good for anybody to be lonely. So if he's alone,
Is he married? Has he remarried?
I'm not sure about that.
if he's alone and he feels okay, it's time to reconnect with my long lost love, then that'll be good for her. But I think this is her dropping a bait in the water.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
You know,
I'm
you
available.
come back to me. I'm done playing around, and I want you back. You know, something like
Like I
that.
said, that would only happen if the man feels the same way as well.
And if he has not remarried.
Honestly, if this happens, it will be another time of think pieces, because in this our country, we love it. There are certain things that happen and we just get think pieces from it. This is why you should not make hasty decisions. This is why don't ever throw away your love if you are not sure. And stuff like that. But then moving on, let's go on to some music. Although this man doesn't really do music, he's the son of Governor Ademola Adeleke of Osun State. Shina Rambo and his wife have finally divorced.
Does music.
More as a producer.
Yeah, he has. That's a
B-Red's brother.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So his wife Heidi Koth has come out on Instagram making an announcement that she wants to give away a diamond wedding ring to a couple who is preparing to tie the knot.
Okay,
So
she's divorced.
yeah, they just
she
got
wants to
divorced
give away her old
recently.
diamond ring.
She wants to give
And then
away her wedding ring, which is
transfer
diamond.
Thank you
the
very much.
crescent.
When I heard that story, that was the first thing I said. I said that you go and collect wahala. Thank you, because that was the first thing that came to my mind.
Honestly, that is what is it's very controversial because now everyone is feeling like this ring, it did not augur well for your marriage. You want to pass it to mine. And I actually saw a comment that said, why not sell the ring and use the money for giveaway if you're such a nice person? Why are you trying? Someone now asked, is that what the Baba say you should do? It's crazy how we
there is something significant we need to take note of here. The rate at which couples are divorcing. It's for example, the Caroline Danjuma talk that we just had. Maybe it's normal to have differences in a relationship. Rather than being hasty to talk about divorce, maybe it's possible that you can stay a bit away and you don't know, you could, mature over the years. But we're now hearing divorce, something that used to be alien with our culture in this part of the world is now like a normal day activity. And you now hear, if you're in conversations with a lot of young people, they'll say, with the new marriage is now, I don't want to do marriage, I'd rather do partner, whatever. And that's a Western culture.
It's an infiltration
it's not our culture.
Of cultures. It's an infiltration. Well, that's a conversation for another day.
Honestly, I think that apart from the infiltration of cultures, many people have realized that they don't have to stay in uncomfortable situations and marriages if they don't want to. And it's both from the men and the women. But one thing for me is, as long as the kids get to feel the love from both parents, even if there's no more affection between the both of them. But it's difficult when, the parents are separated or divorced. Let's move on to what is making the rounds right now. So 30BG, Davido has come out to say that he and Wizkid were the first young Nigerian artists to hit stardom. He stated this in an interview that went viral. Yes, the main people were surprised because I was in the office and someone was playing it. I was listening. I asked, is that an old interview? And they said, no, this is very, very recent. He said he's excited to see the new cats, that's the new stars. And he mentioned first, Burna Boy, Rema, Fireboy, Mayokun, and Ashake now dominating the music industry. This statement has sparked serious controversy on social media. Many of Burna Boy's fans are berating him, saying, "You are calling the Grammy Award winner a new cat? What do you mean?" And so there's been so many think pieces flying around. People saying, "Oh, people didn't know Burna Boy until outside. Oh, when he sang Like to Party, many people didn't really understand or like his sound then." Honestly, it's not been funny on social media with this conversation.
Especially Twitter. They are going to roast Davido.
In fact,
the Wizkid and Odogu fans. They will roast him and they will not leave crumbs. Are you for real?
He did say that. Here's the funny thing.
You know how he sounded like, I'm a father, he's his boy that is just coming up, so you guys should mellow.
Not even older.
Of course he's older. They could be the same age,
because they're around the same age bracket. One thing I see recurring in all of these conversations is everyone always says, "Oh, it's Wizkid and I." Some clefs came out to say, "Oh, it was Wizkid and I that started Afrobeat." Everybody's always saying it's Wizkid and I. So Wizkid seems to be the blueprint. He's the undeniable daddy.
Chairman, go to their YouTube, check who has the highest following. With Davido talking like a grandfather and thinking that Wizkid is an ancestor. They should go and check YouTube and see how many subscribers each of them have with and see who
I believe
has
that's
more
from
followers.
The international market, and that is one thing Rema has been doing consciously recently, trying to break the bounds, leave the African continent. Yes, he's moved into Asia, and we know the population of India. Those people, they are like ants, they are so much. So once they love your music and they stream it, the numbers will keep going up. Now, here is the thing. Davido has come out to say this about Burna Boy, Rema, Fireboy, Mayokun. And these people are not actually even the new cats. What's he going to say about Ashake? Who really just... Ashake was like... I don't think in 2020 during the lockdown, he's been singing, but we just knew him now.
He just had a music that blew him up, but he's been singing.
They brought him into the limelight with Olamide and all of them. So I really think that was a shade. There was no need for that. But we know Burna Boy and Davido.
Wait for fans of Odogu.
And even he himself for his own response, because we know he's not one to let things like this slide. He can be very petty.
Funny, Odogu may not really talk.
All
You may
right,
just
let's,
tweet
let's
one
not
funny
drag-
thing.
we're
We don't
dragging
really
the-
talk.
Well, we wish them well.
Yeah.
We'll keep tabs on the banter on Twitter.
Moses,
and
I've told you, let's go and
social
sing
media.
music. Let's see produce us, give us
All
record
right,
label.
that's the show for today. My name is Moses Humphrey. A big thanks to you, Choma
Choma.
Innocent, for giving us those entertainment tidbits there. Thank you once again.
All right, my name is Esther Wachuku. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at VOP TV, Voice of the People TV, as well as across our social media handles at VOP TV. Make sure you enjoy your weekend.